Welcome to Nuclear Furniture. This is the final Jefferson Starship LP that I will review. It was the last one until 1998's Windows of Heaven under the newly reformed JS. This came out in 1984. This marks the return of Ron Nevison, who did not produce Winds of Change. He produced 3 of the 4 JS albums in the Mickey era. This one managed to go to gold, but it was the lowest charting JS LP, peaking at 28 on the charts. There were 2 hits that made the Billboard Top 100. The first one was No Way Out, which made it to number 23. The second one was Landing on the Line, which I thought did a little bit better. It was number 66 on the charts. And that just supports my thoughts on how the best of, or the greatest hits of Starship should have included one, if not both, of the hits off of Winds of Change, which both charted much higher than Landed on the Line. Let's take a look at the personnel from Nuclear Furniture. Alright, so we have Grace Slick on vocals, we have Mickey Thomas on vocals, Pete Sears and David Freiberg return to alternate on bass and keyboards. Paul Kantner there in the middle did rhythm guitar, lead vocals, backing vocals, even did a little banjo on this LP. Craig Giachiso on the guitars did some rhythm and lead guitars. And the one change is drummer Donnie Baldwin. This was his first and only LP of Jefferson Starship that he recorded on, unless you count the 2020 LP Mother of the Sun. No picture anywhere of the band members. They do list them here at the bottom and give credits on the liner notes, but just a plain black back. You already saw the front. This is the liner. It's got the lyrics included. Again, just like on Winds of Change. Let's take a look at the other side. Okay, here you have these little puns for chairs. We came up with all these different puns, like Charlie's Angels, Chair of My Heart. I left my chair in San Francisco. The Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders, Cherry Juice, Pete Chairs is one here somewhere. Cheryl Teagues, My Chairona, Cherry Thomas. It's in Chair Lotta. And then you have the credits there. Alright. Alright, so the LP starts off with Landed on the Line. This is remains a frequent concert opener for Mickey Thomas. It does well in that spot. And he does deserve to have a little bit of pride in this song. After all, it was the highest charting song that he had a writing credit on. This was written by Mickey and Craig. I've never cared much for it. It's pretty good, but not that great. Then you have No Way Out, which you just heard. That's the best song on the LP. The bizarre video. If you have time, look up the MTV video of No Way Out, and it is the craziest thing. you've ever seen. I think Cantner was dragged, like, kicking and screaming into that chute, and you can't blame him if you see it. Now, I've referred to the song No Way Out as the prequel to the song Sarah, which would be on the next LP. And you can kind of hear the similarities of those in the music and in the lyrics. They're kind of similar songs. And at first listen, you would think that it's, if you've been following these videos carefully, you would hear the music and the lyrics, and you'd say, this is, okay, it's definitely a Sears song. It's not. It's another husband and wife writing team that will now come into the fold, and that would be Peter Wolf and his wife Ina Wolf. This is not to be confused with the New York City-born Jay Giles Band lead singer Peter Wolf. This is the Austrian producer, session touring guy, Peter Wolf. So two different people. So they wrote No Way Out, and they also wrote the song Sarah. So no coincidence there. Next you have the song Sorry You, Sorry Me. And that is a Sears composition. Now, in Sorry You, Sorry Me, I always felt like they thought they really had something here. Again, maybe the production was bad. I don't know what it was, but this song, obviously it didn't chart. It wasn't released as a single. It just misses the target. Live and Let Live, same deal. These songs are kind of similar, and the same thing. It just sails wide of the target. I don't know what happened, but neither of these songs do a whole lot for me, or really for anybody for that matter. Connection is the first Cantner song, and Mickey actually gets a writing credit on this too. Connection's pretty good, actually. It's one of the better. It kind of makes up for the last two subpar ones. I kind of like the Grace sings a little bit on it. I like to see Jesus and Muhammad on the road to Damascus. I mean, it's just like classic Cantner line right there. It's pretty good. And then you get into, all right, so side B, we got starts off with Rose Goes to Yale, another Cantner penned song, and he sings kind of duet on this one. Next you have Magician, which is a Peter Wolf and Grace Slick written song, and it's got some weird little keyboard things in there. It's the only thing that it's the only moment where you have kind of a sense of humor on the LP. Assassin, another Sears composition, not very good. Shining in the Moonlight is another Chiquiso and Mickey song, and this one is it's got those kind of that rock pop sensibilities in there, and it's again, this one falls short. It's just got some pretty good guitar work in there, but it's just not that great. Showdown is a straight up Grace Slick song, and Showdown is pretty good. It kind of fits well into this LP. Champion is the final JS song, and this goes back to, it's another Cantner song, and this goes back to kind of sums up the theme of this LP, which is about, it's a post-future World War III concept. Alright, so it's like the world has been ravaged by a nuke, and but there's still some people left, and there's like a Holocaust that goes on, and what else happens? So that's the whole thing of like nuclear furniture. He refers back to this character named Rose, which I talked about, showed up in the song Lightning Rose way back on Freedom at Point Zero. And it's a woman who suddenly becomes the leader of the planet. And unlike some of the post-nuke themed LPs and movies of the time, this actually has some optimism to it. It's like they're gonna follow her and things are gonna get better. And if you hear the song right now, if you sing loud enough and hopefully enough, and everything's gonna be fine. And then he talks about how there's no more California and there's no more MTV, and the whole, like, the song Rose Goes to Yale, like, promises a better life with Rose. And then you have the song Champion, where, like, against all odds, the whole, like, hippie movement still flies, and it's still alive, and there's a path of peace, and Rose is now the defender, and she's the leader, and everyone's gonna pull together one last time. And that's the whole sentiment of it. If we can all do this and pull together from the brink of the last minute, and the whole Cold War and all this stuff, and everything will turn out great. And that's in the ending song, which is a Champion, kind of has that. That's like the final part that's the final lyrics. Like, yeah, it's gonna be great. I guess that's kind of not a bad final chapter of Jefferson Starship. It kind of sums up the really the theme of what they've been saying back in as far back as Jefferson Airplane. There's actually one clip of them that I found from 1984. Take a quick look. Yeah, so this is, I'm not sure where this is, but this is the MTV Cruise 1984. There's Grace and Mickey right there. There's Pete Sears. And the guy on the left is Peter Wolf on the keyboards. So two keyboardists. Paul Kantner right there on the left. Chiquiso on the right. David Freiberg with the afro in the background. One of the last times we would see JS on stage. Definitely interesting. Alright, so towards the end of the recording of Nuclear Furniture, this is when Paul Kantner, as the story goes, took the master tapes because he thought they were being mixed improperly. And he just took them and basically held them hostage and drove around for a few days in San Francisco. No one knew where he was. He had all the material that they'd been working on for months. And when he finally came back, he basically held them for a ransom and saying that the only way that he would come back is if he could edit all the songs and create enough room to get his songs on there. So he eventually got his way with that. And then the tour was about to start. Okay, so at this point, like, JS was firmly entrenched in the whole video age and MTV and all that stuff. Strangely, their whole push towards becoming modern didn't really work out with the audiences, and that shows with the album only charting at number 28, which was the worst one for any JS LP. So now Kantner was considering them a sellout, and a lot of the critics agreed. You had Grace walking around with space alien outfits and punkish hairdos, but again, the record-buying audience wasn't quite didn't really care about what they were doing. Peter Wolf was there to help push them into this new age, but it wasn't working out greatly. So they were kind of in a rock and roll limbo state at this point, and they had to make a decision. They were going to have to either, keep trying to make music that would appeal to a younger audience, or they could roll back the clock and try to appeal back to the baby boomers who had, grown up with Airplane and some of the early JS. Mickey, like I mentioned the last video, this faction here, Mickey Craig and Donnie Baldwin, were completely on board with keeping up the contemporary direction. Paul was strongly against it, and these two here, Freiberg and Sears, were mostly against it too. They kind of felt ridiculous playing synthesizers and calculated music and that kind of stuff. But so the tour started in support of Nuclear Furniture, and it was June of 1984 at it was some amusement park in San Jose, where there was a lot of disagreements, especially coming from Paul, and the rest of the band wanted these like background singers in there, and Kantner said, if there's background singers, I'm gonna get a machine gun out. There were 2 shows, and after those 2 shows, Paul Kantner stormed off, and he would never return. So the last remaining link to not just JS and the founder of JS, but the last remaining link to the original Airplane was now gone, and he had finally had enough. And what drove him over the edge was the band had sent Mickey to tell him that they wouldn't be using one of his songs on the album, and that really set him off. So he called a meeting and issued a bunch of demands and said, look, let's do I'll decide which videos to make and where we're going to tour, and let's do one, in his words, he said, we'll do one more album together as JS, and then we'll go our separate ways and we'll retire the band's name. The others nixed the idea, so Paul was officially gone. So he had been outnumbered. Pete Sears, of course, these 3 stayed. Pete Sears also stayed. That's a little bit surprising to me, because he's a little bit more of a maverick. I kind of expect him to be, not necessarily go with Kantner, but kind of go off and do his own thing solo. Maybe just tour with some well-known bands. David Freiberg also stayed in the band, and he would regret this decision. The wild card was Grace Slick. She was, of course, Kantner's ex, but they were on good terms on a personal level. I mean, Paul wasn't rushing over to her house in the middle of a winter evening to shovel snow or anything like that, but they were on friendly terms. However, she decided to stick with the Jefferson Starship, and this I think this also sent him over the edge even more, and this became a period where he really lost it, according to his daughter, where he would make bomb threats to the on the stage before they went out on a concert and stuff. He just really was he described it as feeling like he had lost a family, and he was the one that was broken off, and he felt like he was just completely at sea. Something that a lot of people can relate to. So for the rest of the tour, while there were legal battles going on, the band was temporarily allowed to call itself Starship Jefferson. And I would give anything to find clips of these shows of the 6 remaining members playing playing under the name Starship Jefferson. Just a very interesting time. Alright, so this is the spot where we say goodbye to Paul Kantner and from JS, and I'm glad to say that I actually did see him performing one time with JS back in 1998, and I stopped by at a little show here in Richmond. It was an outdoor thing, and somehow got in for free, because if it not free, it not for Peter or Frank Addington. I believe it was Diane Morgano on the lead vocals, who was kind of like the other, it was kind of the slick at the time. I can't say for sure if Balin was there or not, but I do remember seeing Kantner up there, and he had a headband, and my thought was, this has a completely different sound from the Mickey Starship, but it definitely, even at a young age, I could hear it was definitely a more seasoned type of sound than the Starship. I only stayed for a few songs. There was also an incident maybe 10 years ago or so where I posted a topic on the official Jefferson Starship page, which was moderated by Kantner himself, and it was something about asking people their favorite JS tune featuring Mickey Thomas. And when I came back to check it a couple hours later to see if anyone had responded, it was I found out that I'd been banned. My IP address had been banned from the site for for posting it. And there were some kind of mean comments that directed towards me, but I consider that kind of an honor to get whored by Kantner. But all things considered, I've never been a huge fan of what he did in the band as far as like musically, but he was the one that, it was his vision, it was his idea, it was his creation, and definitely the fans have to be grateful for that. And I think you can't, if you listen to all the LPs and you remove him from it, it just wouldn't be the same. It's he's part of the whole legacy, and his music that he added to the albums they're just an important part. Not all the songs are great, but I do like some of them, even though they're kind of sci-fi tinged. Some of them they're actually don't mind them that much. Also, he gave my favorite rock vocalist, Mickey Thomas, his opportunity to be in a bigger band, in front of bigger audiences on a bigger stage. And Mickey himself has brought this up too, how thankful he is for Kantner giving him that opportunity. And as much as has been said about, I've mentioned this before, but things about him being a dictator and all that stuff, it's really maybe towards the end, but for the most part, if you go through all of the JS albums, those 10 years, he allowed a large number of different people to come in and contribute different things and different sounds, different ideas. I mean, go back to Red Octopus and listen to that. All the way up to Nuclear Furniture, you hear different voices, different people playing different instruments. He was definitely a leader that allowed the band to be more of a team, and I think that shows throughout the catalog. So rest in peace, Paul Kantner. You are missed. We lost him in January of 2016. So the lawsuit was settled in March of 1985. Kantner ended up with cash, and he ended up with part of the name of the band. So the Mickey-led group continued to record defiantly after being called Starship Jefferson. All parties agreed to drop the Jefferson, And the remaining members, the remaining 6 members, would carry on simply as Starship. Alright, so this marks the end of the JS catalog. So we will see you next time as we enter the next era, 1985, the Starship catalog. See you guys then. Take care.
There is no more